All right, guys, back here on Southeastern 14 with Max Barr. And once again, we're back talking about an Arkansas basketball transfer. And I know people are out there wondering, hey, you don't talk about my transfers. Well, I mean, Arkansas's had to rebuild an entire team just as Kentucky has. So, again, we will let you know we've been trying to do this DJ Wagner one for forever because it seemed like we thought DJ Wagner was going to commit to Arkansas many moons ago. But he has officially, maybe unofficially, committed to the Razorbacks. And so we're going to talk about that on this one. And again, trust me, we've got Chaz Lanier to Tennessee. We've got Miles Kelly to Auburn. Those
Yep.
videos coming up as well soon. So Tennessee fan, Auburn fan, Kentucky. I know we still got another player or two probably to get to on
Yep.
that roster. Many others as well. We'll get to
We're
it. But
getting
before we
there.
talk about DJ Wagner, let's say about Bet Online. Your number one source for the NBA and NHL playoffs this season, every stat, every matchup, and even they have the live odds while the games are being played. The game's over. You can head on over to the online casino, get on a game of blackjack or poker, unwind with one of over 150 slots games. All you got to do is head to the website today to get in on the action. Don't forget, use that promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online. The game starts here. All right, we joked, Max, that, I mean, this is one that it's been like rumored forever, it seems, and people
Yeah.
are just waiting and waiting and waiting until it got to the point where people were like, all right, earlier this week, I think, or maybe it was early last week, people were wondering, okay, is this thing going to happen? And then I think you had someone that removed a crystal ball or something like that for DJ Wagner in Arkansas, and that set off a chain of events where everybody's like, all right, well, maybe he's not going there now, but it looks like this thing's going to happen, and makes sense. We've kind of been hinting at this, I feel like, in every other Arkansas transfer video we've done the past, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks now, just because we thought this would happen, and now he joins the mix and gives John Calipari, another former player to work with, but also someone who really starts to beef up that backcourt a little bit, which, as we mentioned, this was a team that needed some more guards to add to the mix to join Boogie Flan, John L. Davis, and DJ Wagner fits that criteria.
Yeah. Big one here. Big one. We actually had joked about, I think on our last video, like, well, there might be one on the way. There might not be one on the way. This is who we were talking about. So let's go back to high school here. Let's just give the baseline for DJ Wagner. Guys, he was I didn't know this. He was the number one ranked combo guard in the nation. Out of high school, 247 and on three both had the same rankings. I couldn't find a positional rankings on ESPN for some reason, but no matter what the platform you look at, this guy was a top 10 recruit on every program. So you have a McDonald's All-American, but he was also MVP of the McDonald's All-American game. I mean, geez, come here to Kentucky freshman year, SEC All-Freshman team, 3-time Freshman of the Week. Actually, I wouldn't have said he had it 3 times with all the different. I mean, with even on his team, just Shepard, Dillingham, Edwards, Bradshaw. You got Hubbard at Mississippi State going crazy. Wagner had 3 times SEC Freshman of the Week. Now hits the portal, obviously. Everyone has him right around the same in the rankings. I know all rankings are pretty subjective, and it's hard to kind of nail something down here in the transfer portal, but Evan Mia in 247, 35th and 38th, and then on three a little bit lower at 51st, but, right there in that high 30s, 50, right around there. Call him a top 50 transfer here, Blake.
Yeah, that's one of the first things I want to bring up because I think if you're just basing it on comparing the overall numbers to other guys in the transfer portal, all that, I can see why he would be ranked 35, 38, 51. Because again, there's a lot of guys out there who are averaging, 19, 20
Crazy
points,
numbers.
just ridiculous numbers that have played more minutes in college basketball and all this other stuff. But I think if you're ranking it on like pure potential, there was a time last year, and this is where the conversation gets interesting. There was a time early last season where I think we're really having a discussion about, like, is this guy, it was pretty loaded first team All SEC last year. You had a lot of guys that you just couldn't keep off that. Maybe not the first team All SEC level, but like, you were really thinking, okay, if he can produce the way that he produced like the first half of the season, in the back half, then this guy is going to be, you're looking up at one of the top players in the SEC. And we talked about the difference between Kentucky on the floor, off the floor, those kind of things. Kentucky was an interesting team last year, as we noted many times, because you felt like they would hit their groove, and then all of a sudden things would change a little bit. And so injuries played a role with him. We know that. We talked a lot about it last year. If you watched our stuff here at Southeastern 14, obviously a guy who missed some games due to injury. His minutes were not in that 30 plus level that they were earlier in the season. I think he played, fitting enough, right? Played 35 minutes against Arkansas on January 27th. After that, he started, I think, all but one game, aside from the 3 that he missed there kind of after the Arkansas game. But, his minutes were a little more sporadic, I guess you could say. They're consistent, but still, you had some in there where he's playing 13 minutes, 18 minutes, 21, 13, 17, so that's a little bit of a drop compared to where it was earlier in the season where, again, he's playing some of those 30-type plus minute games. So I'm curious to see kind of his encore, we always talk about just a guy who goes from being a freshman to a sophomore, but it was kind of a season where I think maybe, I don't know if ups and downs are the right wording, because it's not to say that he was just a bad, he didn't just all of a sudden go from being a good player to a bad player or anything, but again, kind of the back half of the season was not what we saw the front half, but you do wonder injuries, just kind of how some of the things change in terms of Cal's rotations and all that towards the end of the season. You kind of wonder what was in play, maybe just beyond the obvious stuff, injury-wise, that is.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because that was a big piece on what I was gonna talk about as well. First off, that was a very crowded backcourt to begin with. You got 2 top 15 draft picks and Antonio Reeves, arguably the most efficient offensive player in the SEC last year.
You couldn't play Dillingham, Reeves, Shepard, and Wagner all at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting dynamic. And I think the word you might have been looking for was inconsistency with the offense. He was a very streaky shooter. I thought he was a better 3-point shooter than the numbers suggested. Right down there at like 29% from 3, but it was so streaky. So check this out. So late January to early February, he has a 7-game stretch. Now this was right sandwiched in that ankle injury where he misses those 3 games. He has a 7-game stretch where he goes 0 for 15 from 3. So bad drought. Then the next 3 games, he goes on fire. He goes 9 for 14. Okay. That leads to the final 3 games of the year where he goes 1 of 12. So very streaky. You have some games where he goes like 4 of 5, and you're like, whoa, this guy's on fire. Goes through some stretches where the shots aren't falling. Now, I think a lot of that is this injury. So, they went 1-3 when Wagner didn't play. And they lost to Gonzaga his first game back. He played 13 minutes. It was not DJ Wagner out there. I know a lot of Kentucky fans. Just with any team, when you lose a guy, you're probably gonna be like, well, he did this, and this wrong. We can probably get a guy that is an improvement, this or that. When you look at DJ Wagner's offensive numbers, you can probably come up with some stuff where you're like, well, the turnover rate was a little high, streaky shooter, wasn't that all efficient on offense. But remember this. After they lost to Wilmington, Reed Shepard comes out after the postgame and says, with DJ out, the team might have gotten a little selfish and also missed some defensive assignments, and that led to the loss. All right. And then after they lost to Tennessee, this is now improving. No, not improving, but makes it 0-3 now on the season when DJ Wagner's out. Calipari comes out in the postgame and says, when he don't play, we don't win. There you go. You can look at the numbers all you want. It's the defense. It's the mental side of the game, not missing assignments, all that. That's what DJ brings here.
Yeah, I think that's what we kind of get excited about, because we did. Like, you can't just forget what he did whenever,
right.
Again, before the injury or even after the role changed a little bit or some of the inconsistencies you talked about shooting wise. I mean, this guy, I mean, he was as good as anybody there early. Like he really was playing so well. When you kind of look at again, kind of that first half of the season, even early in SEC play, you look at some of those games, against Florida and Missouri, and even against A&M. I know they lost that game. Like there were some pretty good performances from this
Yeah.
guy, and I think again we know what he's capable of, and I know too Arkansas fans should know that pretty well. I mean, he did play really well, I thought, in that game against Arkansas. They won in Lexington, the 111-102 game. But he scored 19 in that one, and you talked about the streaky shooting, made 4 or 5 from 3 in that game. So, yeah, I think he is. Like I said, I think the potential is there,
Hmm.
and I feel like it's. I don't know if unfair is the right word, but I do feel like at times last year, Kentucky fans were hard on him. We
Yeah.
know that a little bit, and I understood again, like we said, some of the, you could bring up inconsistency if that's the word we were looking for and all that. But man, this guy he's so talented, and for all the reasons you mentioned earlier too, this guy's not getting ranked where he got ranked coming out of high school
Right.
for just any reason. I mean, it's just the talent was there, and I think that's the exciting part now as we look forward because we've talked about all of the pieces they're going to have in the mix now, especially in that
Yeah.
backcourt. And when you just look at the trio of Wagner, Boogie Flan, John L. Davis, um, I mean, that's exciting. And I think we already talked about the front court and everything, and I think this is kind of the move. And we know there's still spots available that Cal's going to have to fill, but to me, this is the move that takes Arkansas from being a team to where we were kind of envisioning it. All right, maybe they're just one or two players away from really looking like, an actual SEC title contender and all of that. I feel like this is one where, given everything we've seen with DJ Wagner so far, I mean, can you just think of the possibilities of playing DJ Wagner and John L. Davis off of each other and what that could give them in the backcourt? I feel like that's a pretty exciting thing, given, again, the two different styles, too, when you think about these two guys and what they do best. So,
Well, and you think about the defense and the size that they kind of have now at the guard
yeah.
position. I mean, I know Boogie Fland is about listed at 6'2", 170, but when I watch him, he's pretty lengthy. And now you've got DJ Wagner. Out of high school, you look at his recruiting profiles, he's listed at 6'3", 170, 175. This guy's 195 going into sophomore year, packed
Okay.
on 20 pounds. You've got John L. Davis, 6'4", 200 pounds. Thiero, you got some toughness. You got a lot of toughness. I mean, you look at DJ's offense. He took 16 mid-range shots. He's putting his head down. He's putting his shoulder into you. He's getting to the rim. And I love that. Did you look at the Ken Palm player comps? You usually like to look at those.
I'm pulling them up right now.
Okay, I've never seen something like this. Usually we'll look at the player comps. Most times there's nothing there really. Sometimes there's one guy you can look at. This was blowing my mind. Blake, you've got Gabe Vincent, okay, NBA playoff legend from last year. Malik Newman, NCAA champion at Kansas. CJ Massenberg, Buffalo Nate Oates era
Interesting.
legend. And then JJ Starling, who's playing next to Judah Mintz at Syracuse. So, I mean, come on. You want a versatile athletic guard? Some good comps there.
You got Barry Brown in there too, Kansas
Yeah.
State
Yep.
legend. But I think I'm looking now. The comp for Barry Brown would have been his freshman season, I think. But yeah, like that's an
It's pretty cool.
interesting. That's quite a group there. So I like that. Yeah, I always loved the Ken Palm comps, but yeah, like I think he's again. I think it's not just it's how he fits into what they're going to do. And I think, like we said, when you see the starting lineup potentially, and
Yeah.
we've talked about this in other videos, and you're going to trot out potentially a DJ Wagner, John L. Davis, Knox, Richmond, whoever you want to put in the fold,
Yep.
maybe at that 3 spot, Thiero, Adu. Wagner, Davis, Thiero, Adu, you feel like are locked in terms of those 4 spots. And that's nothing against Boogie Flan. You just feel like
You
Wagner
got
would
Big
probably
Z to
get the
work
first.
with too.
Big Z's there. Look, give me this lineup, okay? Give me this dream lineup for me. DJ Wagner, John L. Davis, Adu Thiero at the 3, Big Z and Jonas Adu, rounding that out. The size would be immense, but also that's a lineup right there. I'm not saying they're going to be trotting that out, but that shows you, like, when we think about the combinations, at least as of right now, given the roster as it stands, without knowing who else is going to join, hey, there's some fun that Cal can have with these combinations.
Think about this. I mean, I feel like a lot of Arkansas fans have kind of slotted in Carter Knox to that starting spot at the 3, but we just covered Billy Richmond, Billy the Kid, the Outlaw.
Yeah.
And what did we talk about the whole time? The defensive assets that he can bring.
Yeah.
Think about this. You can have a Wagner, Davis, Billy Richmond, Thiero, Adu. Like, that is 5 stud defenders right there.
We're excited. Arkansas fans, you should be excited as well. DJ Wagner joining the Hawks. Check out all the other videos we've done here on the channel. More SEC basketball transfers and roster additions on the way. Hit the subscribe button. Baseball, football as well. Appreciate you guys watching. Talk to you again soon. Southeastern 14.